There are some knocks you hear in your life, and you just know something's about to break. It was a gray Saturday afternoon when I heard it. 3 sharp raps against my front door, like a judge pounding his gavel before sentencing. I opened it, and there they stood, Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob, faces pale, clothes wrinkled, desperation bleeding off them like cheap cologne. I hadn't seen them in almost a year, not since the night my life went up in flames. Linda's voice cracked first. "Kyle, please, we need to talk. It's about the baby." My stomach turned. The baby. That word alone was enough to rip open scars I thought had at least started to scab over. The child wasn't mine, though at one point, I thought it could have been. Turns out, it belonged to my own cousin, Brandon. My blood. And the mother? My wife. Ashley. The woman I trusted with everything. The woman who swore on our wedding day she would love me forever. What AF *** king joke. I didn't move. I just stared at them, feeling my fists clench at my sides. Bob stepped forward, his eyes watery. "Kyle, the baby's really sick. They think it's his heart. We can't cover the medical bills." Linda wiped her nose on her sleeve, her makeup streaked and messy. We thought you might help. He's still your blood." My blood. The words echoed in my skull, hot and heavy, like coals being shoveled into a fire that was already raging inside me. They hit it. Every single one of them. My own family knew what Ashley and Brandon did, and not a soul breathed a word. They watched me walk around like a damn fool, smiling, planning a future with a woman who was slipping off her ring behind my back and crawling into my cousin's bed. And now they had the nerve to stand here, on my porch, asking for money? I should have slammed the door right in their faces. I should have turned around and poured myself a drink and let them rot. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile that feels like broken glass in your mouth. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. They hesitated, probably sensing that the man standing in front of them wasn't the Kyle they used to know. That man was dead, burned to ash the moment he found out the truth. Linda shuffled in first, holding her purse to her chest like a shield. Bob followed, head bowed like a scolded dog. I led them to the living room, the same room where Ashley once curled up next to me, telling me she couldn't wait to build a family together, where she whispered promises under the blanket of night while she was already tearing us apart in the daylight. Funny how places can turn into graves for your memories. They sat down on the couch, fidgeting. Bob cleared his throat. "I know it's a lot to ask," he started, "but Brandon, he's struggling. And Ashley, well, she's not around much anymore. We're trying to raise the boy." I let that sink in. Ashley's not around much anymore. Typical. Even motherhood couldn't pin that snake down. I leaned back in my chair, studying them like bugs pinned to a board. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly, savoring every word. "You want me to foot the bill for the child my wife had with my cousin while you all lied to my face?" Linda burst into tears. "Please, Kyle. He's just a baby. He didn't choose any of this." "No, he didn't. But they did. Every last one of them made their choice when they decided to betray me." Bob dropped his head into his hands. "We're begging you." I leaned forward, my voice calm, almost gentle. "You think because you share a little DNA with me that I owe you something?" Neither of them answered. They just stared at me, broken and pathetic. Good, because they were about to learn what betrayal really costs. I stood up slowly and said, "You'll get your answer tomorrow, bright and early." They both looked up, hope flickering in their bloodshot eyes. I smiled again, a cruel, sharp smile. "Now get the hell out of my house." They scurried out like rats, leaving the door swinging wide open behind them. I closed it quietly, feeling the latch click into place like a lock on a coffin. Tomorrow, I would make sure they regretted every second of what they did. And it would be the start of the end of their perfect little world that I barely slept that night. I sat in the dark living room, the only light coming from the street lamp outside, replaying everything in my mind like a broken tape. Ashley's fake smiles, Brandon's smug laughter at family barbecues, the whispered conversations that stopped the moment I walked into the room. How long had they been laughing at me behind my back? I ran my hand through my hair, fists clenching over and over, jaw grinding so hard it felt like my teeth might snap. At 3:14 a.m., I made up my mind. If they wanted my help, they were going to get it, just not the way they expected. By sunrise, I was dressed and out the door, marching toward the one place that held the ugliest answers, my Aunt Linda's house. I didn't bother knocking. I pushed the door open, walked right in like I owned the place. Linda shrieked from the kitchen, clutching a mug to her chest like it could shield her. Kyle, what are you? Where's Brandon? I barked. She opened her mouth, probably ready to spin some pathetic lie, but the sound of heavy footsteps on the stairs cut her off. Brandon appeared at the landing, shirtless, rubbing sleep from his eyes. When he saw me, he froze. I stared at him. The cousin I grew up playing baseball with, who stood next to me at my wedding, smiling like a damn brother. The same man who later couldn't keep his filthy hands off my wife. Brandon's face went pale. Kyle, listen, man. Save it, I snapped. I'm not here for your excuses. I threw a thick envelope onto the table with a heavy thud. Both of them flinched. Linda's hands trembled as she reached for it, flipping it open. Her face collapsed in horror. Inside were copies of texts, pictures, phone logs, everything. Months of Ashley and Brandon's betrayal. Dates. Times. The secret motel rooms they thought no one knew about. Even receipts. I had spent weeks gathering it all when the truth first came out. Back then, I thought it would bring me closure. All it did was pour salt in the wound. You think I forgot? I said, my voice shaking with rage I barely kept on a leash. You think you could just show up, wave your broken family in my face, and guilt me into saving your precious little love child? Brandon stepped down slowly, hands raised like I was pointing a gun at him. Maybe I should have. Kyle. Bro, I didn't mean for any of this to happen, he stammered. Ashley, she said you weren't enough for her. She said she needed more. She came to me, man. I blinked. For a moment, the room tilted. The walls closed in. Ashley had told him I wasn't enough. After everything, after years of loving her, supporting her, believing in her, that's how she justified it? I laughed. I couldn't help it. A bitter, hollow sound that echoed off the cheap wallpaper. Linda sobbed quietly in the background, but I didn't even look at her. I was locked onto Brandon, feeling every nerve in my body buzz with the need to break something. You're right, I said finally, voice low and even. I'm not enough. He relaxed slightly. But you know what else? I continued. Neither are you. Before he could react, I stepped forward and grabbed him by the front of his shirt, slamming him against the wall so hard a picture frame crashed to the floor. You're weak, I hissed. You're AF *****ing joke. Just like her. He didn't fight back. Maybe he knew he deserved every second of it. I let him go roughly, stepping back. You wanted to build a life on my ashes? I said, shaking my head. Enjoy it, but don't ever come near me again. I turned to Linda, who was now crumpled on the couch, tears streaming down her face. And don't you ever ask me for a damn thing again. I finished. Without another word, I walked out, slamming the door behind me so hard the house rattled. It wasn't enough. Not by a long shot. But it was a start. A rotten tree needs to be ripped up by the roots. And today, I started digging that I should have felt better after confronting Brandon and Linda. I should have felt victorious walking away from that wreck of a house. But as I drove back home, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white, all I could think about was her. Ashley, the woman who used to trace lazy circles on my chest on Sunday mornings. The woman who once cried in my arms about wanting a family, my family. Lies. All of it. When I pulled into the driveway, the rage had boiled into something worse. A hollow, shaking coldness that started in my gut and spread through every inch of me. Her car was parked outside. Of course it was. I pushed open the door and found her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing in the world was wrong. She didn't even look up. What the hell do you want? I said. Ashley finally glanced at me over the rim of her sunglasses. Designer ones. Ones I bought her last Christmas when I still thought we had a future. She smirked. Relax. I just came to get some of my stuff. The casual tone in her voice made my blood boil. Like she wasn't the cause of every sleepless night, every broken dream. I crossed my arms, staring her down. You're not taking a damn thing unless you give me the truth. Ashley sighed dramatically, tossing her phone onto the cushion next to her. Seriously, Kyle? Still on this, she said, rolling her eyes like a spoiled brat who got caught stealing cookies. You wrecked our marriage, I said, stepping closer. You lied to me. You cheated with my own blood. And you're acting like you forgot. She stood up slowly, brushing non-existent dust off her ripped jeans. You want the truth? She said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Fine. You bored me. The words hit harder than any punch. I stared at her, searching for even a flicker of guilt. There was none. You got too predictable, she continued with a shrug. Always working late. Always coming home tired. Always so safe. I needed excitement. Brandon gave me that. She smiled, like she expected me to understand. Like betraying me was a reasonable reaction to being bored. You needed excitement? I said, voice low and dangerous. So you tore our life apart for cheap thrills with a loser who can't even hold down a job? Ashley's face twisted, and for a second, I saw a flash of the real her, nasty, spoiled, entitled. You were never enough for me, Kyle, she snapped. I settled for you because you were convenient. Convenient. Like I was a ****ing toaster oven she picked up on sale. I took a deep breath, feeling the walls close in around me. You're pathetic, I said, stepping back. You didn't just ruin us, you ruined yourself. You'll spend the rest of your life chasing attention because deep down, you know you're nothing without it. Ashley's mouth opened like she was about to spit another venomous reply, but I held up a hand. Save it, I said. We're done here. Get your trash and get out. For once, she had no clever comeback. She grabbed a duffel bag from behind the couch, stuffed with random clothes, makeup, and whatever scraps of the life she thought she could just walk away from. As she headed for the door, she turned back one last time. You'll miss me, she said with a wicked little smirk. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. I already forgot you. The door slammed behind her, rattling the picture frames on the wall. And for the first time in months, the house was silent. Empty. Broken. But also, strangely, mine again. I sank down onto the couch, head in my hands, the weight of everything crashing down at once. Ashley wasn't just a bad chapter in my life. She was the whole damn book I should have thrown into the fire the moment I saw the first red flag. But there was no going back. There was only forward, through the ashes, through the wreckage, and into whatever came next. A few days passed. The silence in the house became both a comfort and a weapon. No more fake smiles. No more pretending. Only the truth, cold, brutal, and finally mine. But peace wasn't something my family knew how to leave alone. It was a Thursday afternoon when I got the text from my mom. Family dinner Sunday. Everyone's coming. You should too. Everyone. Including them. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to disappear into the silence I had just started to get used to. But the angrier, more broken part of me knew. I needed to look them all in the eye. I needed them to see exactly what they had done. So I texted back one word. Sure. Sunday came like a slow, rotting tide. I pulled up to my parents' house, the driveway already packed with familiar cars. I recognized Brandon's beat-up truck immediately. I almost turned around. Almost. Instead, I walked up the steps, pushed the door open, and stepped into a room full of traitors. There was laughter at first, casual conversations about work, about sports, about nothing that mattered. Then they saw me. The room went dead silent. My mother, Susan, rushed over, wearing that fake tight smile she always used when she was about to scold me like a child. Kyle, she said, reaching for my arm. Be nice. Tonight is about family. Family. I nearly laughed in her face. Instead, I brushed past her and made my way to the dining table. Everyone else slowly shuffled in after me. Aunt Linda, Uncle Bob, Brandon, even my father, Tom, who wouldn't meet my eyes. Ashley wasn't there. Of course not. She had gotten what she wanted and vanished, like the coward she was. We sat in an awkward, tense circle while my mother brought out plates of food none of us wanted to eat. It was Bob who broke the silence. He cleared his throat and said, Kyle, we're really sorry about everything. Aunt Linda chimed in, her voice quivering. We didn't want to hurt you. Brandon stayed quiet, staring at his mashed potatoes like they might save him. I looked around the table, seeing all of them for what they really were, spineless, selfish liars who only cared about protecting their own comfort. You all knew, I said quietly, letting the words hang heavy in the air. You all watched it happen, and you said nothing. My father shifted uncomfortably. We didn't know how to tell you. You didn't even try. I snapped, slamming my fist on the table so hard the silverware jumped. Linda burst into tears. Again. Pathetic. My mother's voice wobbled as she said, It was complicated, Kyle. Families make mistakes. Mistakes. I barked, standing up so fast my chair scraped across the floor. A mistake is burning dinner. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. Betrayal? That's AF ******ing choice. Everyone flinched. Good. I needed them to feel even a fraction of the hell I had been living in. You protected them. I spat, pointing at Linda and Bob like they were criminals on trial. You chose them over me. Over your own damn son. The table sat frozen, every pair of eyes avoiding mine. Cowards. I leaned down, gripping the back of my chair. Don't worry, I said, my voice low and sharp. You won't have to deal with me anymore. I'm done with all of you. Linda wailed louder. Bob put his head in his hands. Brandon finally looked up, his face twisted in something between shame and anger. You think you're better than us? He muttered. No, I said, smiling coldly. I'm just not a liar. Without waiting for another word, I turned on my heel and walked out the front door. The last thing I heard was my mother's broken voice calling my name, begging me to come back. But I didn't. I didn't even look over my shoulder. They had already buried the family I thought I belonged to. I was just giving them the funeral they deserved. After walking out of that house, I didn't drive home. I drove nowhere. I just sat behind the wheel, staring blankly at the road ahead, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me to this world. Betrayed by my wife. Betrayed by my blood. Betrayed by my own damn parents. It would have been easier if they hated me. But they didn't. They just didn't respect me. And somehow, that was worse. I finally pulled into an empty parking lot outside a rundown diner. The neon sign flickered like it was barely alive, like me. I grabbed a booth by the window, ordered black coffee, and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Brandon's Facebook page. His life was crumbling. No job. No future. A sick child he wasn't man enough to take care of. And yet, somehow, he still posted stupid motivational quotes like, "Family is everything." Family. The word made me want to put my fist through the table. I wasn't about to let them think they won. No. They needed to feel what betrayal tasted like. So I started planning. First, I reached out to a lawyer I knew, Mr. Jacobs, the kind of shark who could smell blood from a mile away. I explained everything. The marriage. The affair. The cover-up. Sounds like we have grounds for a serious lawsuit, he said, tapping his pen against the table thoughtfully. Alienation of affection, emotional damages, not to mention the fraud if they used your assets to support the affair. Fraud. The word was music to my ears. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Let's burn them to the ground, I said. Jacobs grinned. Good, he said. Because if you really want to make them pay, we'll need to hit them where it hurts the most, their money. Brandon didn't have much, but his parents did. They owned several rental properties. A comfortable little empire. Perfect. I spent the next week gathering evidence, receipts, messages, Ashley's credit card statements that tied Brandon to nights out, motels, gifts. Meanwhile, I stayed silent. No calls. No messages. Nothing to warn them. Let them believe I was licking my wounds somewhere, too broken to fight back. It made the trap even sweeter. But there was something else I needed to do. Something personal. One night, I drove past the house Ashley had moved into, a tiny rental a few towns over. Lights on. Music blaring. I parked across the street, watching. Through the window, I saw her, dancing in the living room in barely their shorts, holding a wine glass, laughing with some random guy I didn't recognize. She wasn't grieving. She wasn't broken. She was celebrating. Celebrating the wreckage she left behind. I should have felt anger. Instead, I felt nothing. Just a cold, clear certainty. She was already destroying herself. I didn't need to lift a finger. But Brandon and his parents? They still thought they had won. And that's where they were dead wrong. The next morning, I met Jacobs again. He had already drawn up the lawsuit paperwork, thick enough to crush a man's spirit just by looking at it. Ready to serve them? He asked, sliding the documents across the table. I stared at the manila folder, feeling a slow grin spread across my face. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. I signed without hesitation. It was more than just revenge. It was justice. They thought they had buried me. They forgot. I'm the one who knows how to dig. And now, it was my turn to make them choke on the dirt. The day they got served was beautiful, in the ugliest way. It was a crisp Saturday morning when the process server knocked on Aunt Linda and Uncle Bob's door. I parked a few houses down, windows cracked, engine idling, watching from a distance. Linda opened the door first. I could see it from here, the confused smile, the polite nod as she accepted the papers. Then I saw the change. Her face drained white. Her mouth fell open. The papers trembled in her hands like they weighed 1,000 pounds. Bob came to the door next, peeking over her shoulder. And when he read the first few lines, he ripped the papers from her grasp and started shouting so loud, I could hear it even from my car. I just leaned back against the seat and smiled. It was better than I imagined. They thought betrayal was a secret, a poison they could tuck away. They thought they could ruin me and walk away without a scratch. Wrong. My lawyer hit them hard. Fraud charges, damages for emotional distress, alienation of affection claims. Every dirty little piece of their betrayal was now public record. Their reputation in town, the perfect family, the kind landlords, the ones always posting fake smiles on Facebook, crumbled like wet paper. Calls started coming in that afternoon. My mother first. She left 6 voicemails in a row, each one more desperate than the last. Kyle, sweetheart, please call me back. We didn't mean for any of this to happen. This lawsuit will ruin your aunt and uncle. Please, think about the family. The family. The same one that watched me get gutted alive and clapped for the ones holding the knife. No thanks. Then Bob himself called. He didn't even bother pretending to be polite. You little s***t, he spat into the voicemail. You think you're better than us? You're gonna regret this. Family always wins. Family. That word again. It was almost funny how they kept using it like a shield, as if family was supposed to excuse betrayal. The best part? They couldn't afford to fight me properly. Their properties were leveraged to the teeth. Every court date cost them more bleeding cash. And me? I had Jacobs, a man who didn't just like winning, he liked annihilating. While they scrambled, I lived my life. I started running again, pounding the pavement at sunrise until the sweat burned the anger out of me. I spent weekends fixing up my house, the one Ashley abandoned like a dog she got tired of. New paint, new floors, new life. Piece by piece, I stripped away every reminder of her. The photos came down first, frames crashing into the trash bin with a satisfying clatter. Then her junk, the fancy blenders she never used, the designer bags she bragged about to her friends, the little trinkets she left scattered like landmines through my home. Gone. I donated it all to charity. Let her precious labels rot in the hands of strangers. Every bag thrown out felt like pulling another thorn from my skin. Freedom didn't come all at once. It came in small, brutal, beautiful steps. And just when I thought it couldn't get better, it did. A friend from town sent me a screenshot. A local Facebook group. There it was, Bob's rental business being dragged through the mud. Tenants posting pictures of black mold, broken pipes, eviction threats. All the things he hid so well for years. Now exposed. Now rotting in the light. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. Their perfect little world was collapsing under the weight of its own filth. All I had to do was sit back and watch. They thought betrayal would be the end of me. They never realized. It was just my beginning. That it was almost poetic how the world balanced itself out. While Bob and Linda's empire crumbled and Brandon's life sank deeper into the mud, I found a strange, bruised kind of peace. I didn't trust easily anymore. I didn't laugh as freely. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying dead weight on my shoulders. Then, as if life wasn't done tossing gasoline on the ashes, Ashley showed up. It was late, almost midnight, when I heard the pounding on my door. At first, I thought it was a neighbor, maybe even one of Bob's lunatic friends. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw her. Ashley, standing there like a ghost of my worst nightmares. Makeup smudged, hair wild, tears streaming down her face like cheap mascara rivers. I should have turned off the light and walked away. But anger is a funny thing. Sometimes you need to look your demons right in the eye just to remind yourself you survived. I opened the door, but only just enough to lean against the frame. She tried to throw herself at me, but I caught her by the shoulders and pushed her back. Don't even think about it, I said coldly. Kyle, please, she sobbed, voice cracking. I made a mistake. I see that now. I need you. She looked awful. Thin. Tired. Broken. Not the polished, smug woman who once danced in her living room with a wine glass, thinking she'd won the world. What happened? I asked, my voice flat. She wiped her nose on her sleeve, shaking. Brandon's a mess, she said, choking on the words. He's broke. He's using again. He doesn't even come home half the time. I almost laughed. She traded a loyal husband for a loser with empty promises. And now she was surprised? You chose him, I said, crossing my arms. You didn't trip and fall into his bed, Ashley. You chose. Her face twisted in pain. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought you didn't love me enough. That old excuse again. I shook my head slowly. You didn't cheat because of what I lacked, I said, every word slicing into the night air like a blade. You cheated because of what you lacked. Ashley dropped to her knees, grabbing at my jeans like a child begging not to be punished. I'm pregnant, she whispered. The words hit me like a gut punch, not because I still loved her, but because of the disgust curling inside me. And? I asked. She looked up, desperation shining in her swollen eyes. I don't know whose it is, she confessed, sobbing harder. Please, Kyle. Help me. I can't do this alone. I stared down at her, feeling nothing. No pity. No sadness. Just a deep, endless void. You made your bed, I said coldly. Now rot in it. I slammed the door in her face without another word. Through the window, I watched her sobbing on my porch for a long time before finally stumbling back into the night. I locked the door, bolted it, and walked away without a second glance. There was a time her tears would have shattered me. Now, they just sounded like justice. Ashley had burned every bridge. And now, standing in the ruins she built with her own hands, she finally realized something too late. When you betray a good man, you don't just lose him. You lose the best life you'll ever have. Weeks passed after that night. Ashley didn't come back. The calls stopped. The texts stopped. It was like she finally understood there was nothing left to save. The lawsuit against Bob and Linda dragged on, bleeding them dry. They tried to settle quietly, but Jacobs made sure the settlement terms were public. Everyone knew now. The town whispered about them, about how their perfect little family wasn't perfect at all, just a house of cards rotted from the inside. And me? I wasn't the same man anymore. I wasn't the naive, trusting fool who believed that loyalty would always be returned. I wasn't the man who bent over backward to make everyone else comfortable while I bled inside. I was harder now, sharper, but somehow still alive. One evening, I sat on my back porch, staring out over the small patch of land behind my house. The sun was setting, painting the sky in violent oranges and blood-red streaks. It felt fitting. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs. For the first time in months, it didn't feel heavy. It just felt clean. This was what survival looked like. Not smiling through the pain, not pretending everything was okay, but dragging yourself through hell and coming out the other side burned, bruised, but still standing. Sometimes standing was enough. I thought about Ashley sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with a strange, cold indifference. She had gambled her future away for cheap attention. She thought the grass was greener somewhere else. What she found instead was a desert. And Brandon? Last I heard, he was living out of his truck, bouncing from job to job, dragging his mess of a life behind him like a busted trailer. They got exactly what they deserved. Karma wasn't a myth. It was a slow, brutal storm that never forgot its debts. As for me, I started rebuilding, piece by broken piece. I took trips by myself. I picked up old hobbies I had abandoned for her, photography, hiking, woodwork, things that reminded me that life wasn't just about surviving betrayal. It was about rediscovering who the hell you were without someone else's lies weighing you down. I met new people, slowly, cautiously, built new connections, not out of desperation, but from a place of knowing my own worth. I wasn't bitter. I was better. And if there's one thing this entire nightmare taught me, it's this. Never let loyalty blind you. Love is a gift, not a leash. Trust is earned, not owed. And sometimes the people who swear they'd die for you are the first to bury the knife in your back the second you turn around. But here's the beautiful part. Betrayal doesn't define you. It doesn't own you. It only reveals them. Their character, their rot, their emptiness. The day I let go of the rage, the hurt, the endless loop of why me, was the day I got my life back. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need apologies. Their downfall was their own making. I was already living the greatest revenge there was. Freedom. True, brutal, beautiful freedom. And if anyone reading this ever finds themselves standing where I once stood, broken, alone, betrayed, remember this. You are not their mistakes. You are not their lies. You are the fire that will burn brighter than the ashes they left behind. Stand up, walk away, and build something so damn strong they choke on the dust of your success. That's exactly what I did. And I wouldn't trade that strength for anything in the world. Not even for the love I thought I lost. Because in the end, I didn't lose. I won. I just didn't know it yet.